Welcome to the Geek Homeworld. I am your host, SavageTechman. We talk sci-fi, TV, movies, superheroes, and all from a geek perspective. You can find us on Blogger, Google+, Twitter, Facebook. We're everywhere. Join the Geek Homeworld. Hello, this is SavageTechman, and welcome to another episode of the Geek Homeworld podcast. Joining me once again is Cheryl.
Hello.
Palace Princess. Welcome back. And we just got back from seeing the IMAX 3D version of
Wonder Woman. Now you have to say it a certain way. Wonder Woman.
Yeah, I'm not a good singer.
We know.
Our initial thoughts. Did you enjoy it?
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it definitely lives up to what's been coming out in the last couple of weeks, that it's actually a good film.
Yeah.
Oh, and this is spoiler-free.
Yes, thank you.
This is the spoiler-free review, so if you haven't seen the movie, you can listen to this segment and be okay.
Yeah, we're going to try our best, or I'm going to try my best not to spoil it. Because this was a spectacular movie. Got to rush to the theater and check this out. And first thing I guess we're going to chat about here is how well does it fit into the DC extended universe? The DC
well,
universe?
I think the current universe, because there's so many renditions of it. So if we're talking about since Man of Steel, so this is Man of Steel, and then Superman. I'm sorry, I always do that backwards. Batman versus Superman.
Suicide Squad.
And Suicide Squad is sort of tangential. So, I mean, this is part of the series with Batman heading towards Justice League. I think it is actually better than what I've seen so far. So,
I love different elements about Batman versus Superman, the Ultimate Edition, which I've talked about on the podcast before. And
I enjoyed Batman versus Superman. But the more I reflect on it, the less I like it.
Right. I understand that.
It doesn't hold up for me.
There are a lot of people that, that feel that way, but this movie blows it away and I think sets a high standard for the DC universe. Finally, something worthy of competing on the level of Marvel.
Well, and that's, I don't want to be offensive to any
DC
people
fans
who are the big DC fans, but in terms of film production, Marvel, I've said it before, has clearly done a better job of developing their characters and their stories. This movie has a story, and although Wonder Woman's not part of the Marvel universe, the production on this and the writing on this and the story on this felt more akin to what they've been doing
in Marvel's
versus stories versus DC's. But it still had the battles and it still had the effects and
early
all the blah blah blah.
I was thinking Wonder Woman was going to be basically Captain America: The First Avenger, but set in World War I.
Well, and I don't know if that's entirely wrong, but we can't talk about that without spoiling the film, so we won't talk about that. But I do think, of course, they introduced this Wonder Woman, played by Gal Gadot, in the Batman vs. Superman
movie.
And I felt like she was really underutilized there. It wasn't very clear what was going on, so we really had to get this backstory, this sort of DC origin story for her.
Trying to play catch up and just throw everybody into the pot. That's why they did Batman versus Superman.
And in that case, they really just threw it in the pot.
They literally did with Flash and everybody else.
Let's do 20 seconds of each of these guys. Here's the Flash. Here's Aquaman. We're not going to tell you anything about them, but here they are.
Exactly.
We have no idea why she's gathering the information that she is in Batman versus Superman. So, in terms of how this fits into preparation for Justice League, which, by the way, we did see the IMAX preview for Justice League, which I think trailer, I'd seen once or twice before already. It's been out for a minute.
Yeah.
But, boy, they don't give anything away.
Yeah, they don't want to give anything away.
It's all like, okay, we get to see all of the guys and the gal, I guess. Yep. Gal Gadot. But it doesn't tell anything about the story at all. So we get a little bit of character development, and we do get to see again, that sort of inter-character play that has been more common in Marvel than in DC.
Right.
Of course, DC's not been doing the multi-character movies in the way that Marvel has. So that at least, makes me feel good about Justice League. Now, in terms of how this film sets up the story for Justice League, it's really hard to tell.
It works for me as a standalone origin movie. So
absolutely, it's definitely like if you see no other Justice League movies,
you'll
be fine with just seeing this one,
like Batman. Or
so anybody who just wants to see this movie, just see this one.
It's a good jump.
You don't have to have seen what came before. Really, you don't even have to see anything that comes next. You can just enjoy this film on its own.
I think that some of the earlier things actually not earlier, but recent things I've been hearing about it, how well it's been reviewed and everything. And I was worried there was not a lot of press out there, not a lot of push to get this movie out in front of people. But we did see in Supergirl, they did a little something with Wonder Woman. Linda Carter's character, she's actually on there as the president.
Well, and I think they've been pushing the female angle.
But they finally started to do it.
The female angle on this, and Linda Carter was at the...
She's still always Wonder Woman
the real Wonder Woman.
And
she was there at the premiere with Gal Gadot. Mm-hmm. So, and like you said, Supergirl has sort of primed the audience again with younger girls wanting to go and see it.
And I think that this follows in, and I saw a thing, I think it was on Nightline, I believe, and they were talking about different movies like The Force Awakens, with Rey's character, the female character, being so strong on film. And I was one of the many that said this Wonder Woman movie has to work. It has to be spectacular. And it delivered on everything because we need to see strong female characters leading.
Here's a tip to Marvel, because here's where they've really fluffed it up. Like, why haven't we seen Black Widow's movie?
Well, they were hinting around, and, I think after this could maybe make a good call for Black Widow.
On the other hand, Black Widow's been in, like, absolutely everybody else's movies, so I guess it's good for Scarlett Johansson. Right. She's got a lot of work, but, she needs to be able to have her own film. But that's another story for another day.
Yeah. The overall storytelling of Wonder Woman was very, very good. I thoroughly enjoyed.
Yeah, I feel like I don't feel like there's anything I needed to know that I didn't know. I didn't feel like there was anything that I should have known at a different time. Like, just very well constructed. Like, I think we talked about the script writing workshop that we had gone to a month or so ago, and I don't know if I mentioned then that the guy who was leading it said, every story needs a beginning and a middle and an end. Well, it achieved that.
It definitely did. This movie had so many levels, and Patty Jenkins, the director, a female director directing a lead female in a comic book movie. This is very historic, very, very powerful, great positive statement. Everybody should be proud of this movie.
Well, and Patty Jenkins actually has a very lean resume. It's almost amazing that she got the job, because she only has one previous feature, Monster, which is about a female serial killer based on a true story, starring Charlize Theron. And so I guess,
who we saw
feature
earlier,
films with strong female leads.
Well, you didn't see because you didn't see Fast 8 or F8.
Right.
Fast and Furious. But Charlize Theron did one of the best female villains I've seen, hands down, this year in a movie.
But in, looking back at Patty Jenkins, otherwise she's done episodic television, just an episode here or there of various things, and a couple of shorts. So this is, like you go from internship to major leagues.
And not one person makes a film, she's not the only one responsible for it. There's so many different levels of it. But they knock it out of the park on this one.
Well, and so many people, the list of producers, executive producers, producers, assistant producers, 13 some kind of producers on this film. So that's, a lot of people with their hand in there. And sometimes that doesn't work because sometimes it really messes it up. You've got too many egos, too many ideas.
I've been in writing with other people, and sometimes when you have more than a couple people, it's hard. It's very hard to write in groups, and it's hard to keep that overall story arc. But they have like Zack Snyder in there, and he was responsible for Batman versus Superman, and in the backlash, even though that movie did $800 million at the box office, that's still not good enough for some fans out there,
Well, and even 300 and Watchmen.
Oh yeah.
So I have to say I don't
Snyder's
particularly enjoy his films. I know, obviously they have huge audiences, huge fan bases.
I'm one of them.
This is very much a Zack Snyder film, though. I mean, in terms of the things you typically expect from a Zack Snyder film, absolutely. It's got the slow motion in the middle of a fight action sequence. It's got...
it's very much like 300.
It's got... Yeah, you can see that in all of those things. And so you certainly see... But then there's a lighter touch to it, too.
Oh, there's
which, his wife is in on this, Deborah Snyder. There are several female producers on this, too.
This movie has heart. And I've said that before. Heart. It really does. And it's got a really great universal theme that runs through it. And I can't say more because I'm trying to keep the spoilers at hand, but this movie achieves that. And
you said with Captain America, Captain America has a lot of heart in a lot of ways.
Yes.
Just the character of Wonder Woman and the character of Captain America have a lot of resonances with each other. They're sort of, what true actual heroes.
Yeah, what I really liked about this, and I thought about this because in the comics, Superman and eventually him and Wonder Woman hook up, and now I could see her looking across the room in the Justice League and saying, going to the strongest warrior out there, which would be Superman.
Well, not only that, but the one, not just the strongest warrior, but the one...
Not so much physical
generally
strength,
with the strongest moral code, too.
Very good, yeah.
Because I wouldn't say that's Iron Man.
No, well, that would be in Marvel, but I mean...
And in her own, with Batman. But in looking also at the producer list, Steve Mnuchin is in there, and of course now... When they were working on this film, this wasn't the case, but now he's the Secretary of the Treasury, so who would have seen that coming? Except for he's got a big background in baking, but he's been, he's been very involved, again, working with Charlize, Mad Max Fury Road. He was on that.
Which was very good.
As well as, Edge of Tomorrow. He's done a lot of these DC movies with, again, Batman versus Superman, and Suicide Squad, which was, successful in a lot of ways, and then
it was very much
that
was a niche movie. A niche is niche.
Yeah,
niche?
It depends on how you want to say it. Be French or American, whatever you feel like.
My least favorite of it, but I know some people like Suicide Squad.
Well, it could have just been,
it was tone.
A Deadshot and Harley Quinn movie.
Could have totally been that.
Everybody else could have been left out of it.
Yeah,
and it would have
one
been
of the best characters they killed off in Suicide Squad. But anyway, the costume design. The production design. What do you think on the production design?
I thought it was so appropriate whatever the setting was. So whether they were on, what Steve calls Paradise Island, Themyscira.
I love that.
So appropriate. They're like beautiful. Like this is obviously a Paradise Island. But when they go into the war and into the real world, so gritty and dark, actually like it would have been, and so it's almost as if there were two different production designers working on those projects.
This movie, in some ways, how it looks and how it feels and how serious, and I can see how it's been compared to the Christopher Reeve Superman movie, his first one that he did, because it's very heroic, and I haven't felt heroic in a movie since maybe a couple of the Marvel ones. Mainly like Civil War and stuff like that, but just really, there's that sense of not so much patriotism, but just a love of humanity. Even though Diana's on a mission, Wonder Woman's on a mission,
humanitarianism.
Very much so. Thank you.
I liked the music too, and the
music was
the
wonderful.
Sound production.
The sound design was wonderful on this.
And the practical effects and the stunts. Like, I don't even... if you stay for the credits, which there are no after-credit scenes. Again,
there were no after-credit
this is
scenes.
not a Marvel movie. But just the list of stunt actors and stunt directors, just incredible. I can't even imagine that they had to have had several just for Gal Gadot, for Wonder Woman herself. And there were a couple of times where I could tell, that's a stunt actor. Because
and some of the special effects, like when she leaps, it does look a little...
Well, it's a whole lot easier to make a man in a big costume look like the stunt actor, look like the real actor. But when you've got a girl with her legs hanging out, it's a whole lot harder to make them look like the same person.
But like
but it didn't stick out
for me. Yeah, the practical and like special effects. I don't know that I necessarily saw that. I did see practical effects, I suppose.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Were there any practical effects? Because it seemed like a lot of it was CGI.
And some of it, the jumping, leaping, or whatever that she does, that's fine. But it didn't bother me as much. I mean, I don't know how you make that look real.
Green scene stuff,
And when she's moving really fast and engaging some of the best battle scenes, most intense, there were some just really uplifting, times in that movie where I was like, wow, I just wanted to kind of cheer.
Well, you're really able to suspend your belief and go in the story and live in the world of the story, I think.
Of course, like a lot of movies, it did have a little bit of slowdown in the middle there, but there was I can't say it because it's a spoiler, but there's a beautiful scene in there with Steve and
you can put a pin in that and talk about it next week.
Yes.
And I think, there are a couple of places where the story kind of is like, okay, maybe you didn't really need to include all of that because you felt like you had to talk about this.
Right.
Where, you could have cleaned that up a little bit. But overall, everybody, when they came and worked on this film, everybody did their job. So even with the costume design, I'm happy with Wonder Woman's outfit. As much as I love Linda Carter as Wonder Woman,
I'm on board
she's
now.
Basically wearing a bathing suit. And in this Wonder Woman,
for me when I grew up,
she's she's still very revealed, but not so much, So it looks a bit more practical. And when you see the costume design of what's going on in her home world, it makes sense how she's dressed. And there are some sequences about clothing specifically that are interesting. But overall, I thought they did a good job again with. Here's the world that she grew up in, and then here's the real world, and the very clear demarcation between them in terms of the look of the film, the feel of the film, the music selection between the two when you're talking about all of that.
Now, we did see it in IMAX 3D, and I thought it was beautiful. It was just tremendous in 3D. Do you have to see it in 3D? No, certainly not.
No.
Or even in IMAX, but everything's better in IMAX.
Everything is always better in IMAX, whether it's a short documentary at a science museum somewhere or it's a full feature film. But, in terms of 3D, I'm always on the side of you can usually do without it. And in this case, it didn't stick out to me. There wasn't anything I thought, wow, that was fantastic. But there also wasn't anything that was distracting me. And that's usually what bothers me about 3D. When it's like, oh...
Let's poke her in the eye, the audience eye now.
Well, it's just too much. And in this case, I didn't have that. So,
it was more of the atmospheric kind of 3D. And, I'm getting used to that now. So,
Well, and I guess that's what you have to have when things are blowing up, know.
But it just, maybe that
I don't think it's a spoiler to say things blow up, is it?
No. The battle and fight scenes were spectacular on there. And one thing on design, I'm sorry, I wanted to jump back for just a second. The mascara, when they show you that, it's breathtaking.
Yeah,
it reminds me of.
I want to find out where the real sets were. Like you should, some tourist agency somewhere needs to offer that as a package.
And you can go see the island.
Now, obviously, they've enhanced it with CGI.
You can see where Luke Skywalker and Rey are in The Last Jedi. That looks beautiful. See, right together that the island. Let's build a house there.
Maybe we should just open a tour company called.
Heard it here first.
Real movie and TV sets and
trademark.
No.
Yeah. But
Well, in terms of the battle
Beautiful.
scenes too, generally when I see
Even the battle scenes were gorgeous.
Well, when I see a film like this, I usually say, well, the last 20 minutes of that battle scene could have been cut, or 20 minutes of battle could have been cut somewhere. I didn't feel that way about this
I
film.
wanted more.
This movie was 2 hours and 21 minutes, and it didn't feel that long.
I don't know, when we got out of the theater, I guess getting there, it did feel like we'd been in there half our lives.
Well, you're used to coming into things late, and we arrived early, so that's probably
maybe that's what threw me off.
what it was.
Actually getting the
But I did not come out of this film feeling like, well, that should have been a whole lot shorter, like I often do, and like in fact I have always done with all of the DC movies. I always felt like they were too long.
Right.
I didn't feel like that.
I
was
looked
the
over
case.
a couple
There wasn't
times just
wasted time
to gauge the look out on your face or whatever, and see if you were like bored or if you were half asleep or anything.
Wow.
So I didn't see any of that. You looked very much engaged.
Wow,
so.
what does this say about me watching movies?
No. I mean, if they're monotonous and it's the plot's too, you know what I mean, just too done.
Moving on.
And moving on, yeah, I'm not.
Well, there are definitely times when I'm sitting there, like turning in my seat, thinking, "Can I say let's leave?"
Yeah.
But not, that's not been true of a DC movie. But that we have been to films that I've thought, "Why are we wasting our time?"
So, best performances, obviously,
Gal Gadot is incredible.
As Wonder Woman, she is Wonder Woman.
She absolutely, yeah, she does a great job in delivering the character and making the character believable and
human.
This is an origin
to an extent,
story.
no pun intended. But.
Chris Pine, I adore Chris Pine. I love Chris Pine. I don't know if I'm too much about Star Trek that it's hard
funny.
for me.
I did turn to you and say, look, Captain Kirk and Wonder Woman.
I mean, and there are a couple things like, this is Steve Trevor on Paradise Island, where the girls with the funny ears or the tails or whatever, So.
Well, oh yeah, because you're thinking of Star Trek.
But otherwise, yeah, I mean, because it's like, oh, there's Captain Kirk. But, so that was hard for me to get past, and I don't know if that's my fault or if he could have done a better job of making more differentiation in the character.
Don't know. I mean, I get that there was one time he did some acting in part of a scene where I was like, yeah, that feels like Captain Kirk. But, like, he had some of those little mini speeches there when the crescendo is coming and he has to go off and do something in the movie, and I can't say...
You need to just stop. You're getting dangerously close to the edge.
I'm walking
This is like
edge.
when you're hiking in the mountains, and I'm like, yep, sure, you're going to fall off the mountain.
Sorry, it can happen. But what I was going to say, without being spoilerish, but he has some parts that made me, as a fan, feel really, excited about...
Well,
I think his performance was really... I think he did really well.
For sure. I mean, and of all the male characters in the film, of course, he's the lead, but...
And he should kind of carry things. But.
He's like 10,000 times more than the other characters who were all pretty much played by character actors, but I didn't feel like any of them stood out. However, I thought the female characters... did stand out.
Yes.
Like, all of those performances felt stronger to me than most of the male characters did. Mm-hmm. I love Connie Nielsen as Hippolyta. Robin Wright, just unbelievably strong and beautiful as, I think that's Antiope. I think they pronounced it a couple of different ways.
Depends how the Mascarians
but just like, in looking at, here's Robin Wright... And 51 years old. Connie Nielsen is a little bit older, I think 52. And I'm looking and thinking, this is what, strong middle-aged women, like what we should all look like. We should be this healthy and this fit and this gorgeous. And, so Robin Wright has gone from being a princess bride to being an Amazon woman and just aged so... I mean, I just can't stop saying enough about not just how well, but the interplay between all of them is, there's clearly a relationship there, and they clearly have this well-developed society. Just, they just did such a great job of bringing that world to life, and, I can't say enough about them. And then
one of my favorites is... Who? Lily Aspel. I think I'm saying that right.
Oh, yeah. As she the young Diana.
Yeah.
So
adorable.
Spunky
so cute.
and bright and just, won't take no for an answer. Really just well done. Although I have to say, like, so many of these actors, Lily is, I think, Scottish, and Connie is Danish, Robin is American, and of course Gal is Israeli. And so they're all coming from different backgrounds in terms of their accents. And I did find it just a little bit distracting because I felt like they had a speech coach who was trying to make them all sound like Gal Gadot. Like, okay, let's get her accent.
That's a good point.
I could feel sometimes it was a little bit of a struggle. It didn't feel comfortable to me at times, so that did stand out to me a little bit. But it was an international cast of actors on this film. And I have to say, I really enjoyed Lucy Davis as Etta Candy. Just, a bright spot.
She was fun.
Color. She was color in every kind of way, that in terms of the brightness of the character,
just the spunkiness,
the comedy that she brings to it. She is M. She's Judi Dench's M.
Well, there was one thing though that we both agree on. The crew that Steve and Diana were rolling with.
I don't know. If I wouldn't want to see a sequel about what happened to those guys. It just wasn't. I didn't feel they were that engaging.
They kind of reminded me.
I would much rather see more about what's going on back on Themyscira than what happens to these guys after the film.
Right. They didn't really. That much.
I'm not interested in their origin story, where I could see.
It could
let's go back and see how these ladies got on this island.
Right. It could have totally been just Wonder Woman and Steve Trevor, and I would have been fine with it.
Yeah, I thought they were fine, but
they added a little bit, but into the overall story, they kind of felt very like Captain America in his first movie.
Well, it was kind of like did somebody pull out the Captain America First Avenger script and say,
okay,
let's tick these boxes.
Yeah.
Make sure we've got this particular thing and make sure it goes in there.
So, best movie of the summer so far?
I don't know. This is a really good movie, but I love Guardians 2. And I enjoy Guardians 2. And I saw... How many times have I seen Guardians 2?
Twice?
3 times?
3 times?
At least 3.
You've seen it 3?
I'm trying to remember if I've seen it 4.
I think it's 3.
I think it's 3.
Yeah.
And I could see Wonder Woman a second time.
I definitely could see Wonder Woman a second time.
But I don't know if I want to see it a third time.
And the movie. No.
Yeah, okay.
But
so, I don't know. I think, if we're going to measure this across the summer, right now I'm sticking with Guardians is still number 1 for me. Now, you also saw Fast and Furious 8.
Which was very good.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it.
I don't know. Do we count that in the summer season?
The summer keeps getting pushed back sooner and sooner. It's like in April.
Well, here, literally, where we live, summer starts about January the 12th. So.
Yeah. We don't have a winter anymore. We're done with that. But should you go out and see this movie? Most definitely. You should run to theaters. You should go this weekend. It's important that... Of course, by the time we get this posted, the weekend will be about over. So hopefully,
it will be. Yeah.
You will have gone and seen it at some point. But
take a day off from work and go see it during the week.
Right. Friday was get out of work early day or something.
Was it?
Yeah, something like
Nobody
that.
told me because I worked late.
I know you did. And but you should definitely go catch this movie and see it and. Everybody get behind this movie, like we've been saying here on the podcast, because Wonder Woman. I don't think it needs the help.
No,
yeah.
A year ago, I
wouldn't
have thought much about the prospects for this movie.
I wasn't excited.
But
I
wasn't
originally excited about this movie.
I'm all for it.
And after seeing
Wonder Woman. Da, 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 da. I don't know the music. That's your thing.
Yeah, I can't do it. Copyright. So, anyway, thank you for joining us here on our spoiler-free edition of the Geek Homeworld podcast. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Geek Homeworld podcast with your host, SavageTechman. You can find us on Libsyn, Google+, follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, listen to us on iTunes, see us on YouTube, be part of our Mixler chats. Thank you. See you again on the Geek Homeworld podcast.